All right. I'm gonna go through 2.2 and not 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4, and if I have time, I'm gonna come back to that earthquake problem. 2.3 is on functions and relations. We're waiting for that fucking video to hit and record. And this motherfucker over here fucking dropping shit. What was it? Sound like a pencil sharpener.
That's what it was.
Did you buy it? No, you fucking breaking Eric's shit now.
Stop.
Look at this. Is it Eric's? Not broke yet. You tried. You need to stop giving that shit. Tell him to walk his happy ass down the hall. Bring a fucking carving knife, a little fucking wood carving knife. Alright, so we'll start with relations. Relations are a connection between two things. For example, when Jimmy earns a 96%, now let's go 97% in this class. He will earn an A plus. There is a relation between the 97% and the A plus. So we usually show relations in parentheses. Usually in parentheses. And sometimes, often actually, the second item is dependent on the first item. Just as Jimmy's A plus depends on him earning a really high grade. So that's like an individual relation. Generally, we look at sets of relations. And since it's math, we're going to use MathKit now. Say that's set M. Set N. And we'll go with P. There's a reason why I listed them, because then we're gonna. It didn't just list 3 of them for no reason. So these are all X's and Y's. The way we use them in mathematics, X's and Y's. A function is a set of relations where every X value only has one Y value. A better way of looking at it is one of these is not a function. One of M, N, and P is not a function, the other two are functions. M and N are functions. P is not. Now notice on L, let me let you finish writing before I just start rambling. Notice M has 2 different points that have 1 for the Y value. That's okay. We just can't have the same X leading to 2 different Y values. Like occurs on P with -4. P has a -4 with a 3 as an output and a -3 as an output. So it has 2 different possible outputs and it doesn't work. Having a bunch of them, like having something like this looks like there's a lot of stuff showing up, but the X's are 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's no possible repeat there. Now let's talk about domain and range. Let me bring back. Let's get rid some of that to talk about. The set of all input or independent. Totally can't spell independent, right? Values, that's our X's. Is called the domain. The set of all dependent variables. For our output variables. Is called the range. And they show these a couple ways. You can list them. And then the way they do it. They show it like that. Or we could just have an XY table. And then the columns are the domain. And range. I guess I didn't have M still on the screen. We could also do it from graphs. I guess I should put arrows on them and not be lazy. So. If I have a line. Most straight lines have a domain. And range. Of negative infinity to infinity. All x values work, all y values work. The only exceptions is horizontal line. Let's say that's at 2. For the red line there, the domain is all real numbers, negative infinity to infinity. They sometimes do this to represent all real numbers. But the range there is just y equals 2. That line blue. Use green over here. Vertical line. Let's say this is x equals -1. On a vertical line, the domain is just the x value. And the range is all real numbers. And it's worth noting that every line except the vertical line has a corresponding function or equation. Corresponding function. Vertical line is not a function. Because we want one thing to happen. And if you've got them when you're graphing them, it's easy to see what the function and what is. How we can tell graphically. Check to see if a function an equation or a relation is a function graphically. It needs to pass the vertical line test. And the way the vertical line test works is if every vertical line intersects the graph only once, it's a function. Right, so what I have on the left is an ellipse, see how to do those later this semester. And what I have here on the right is called a parabola. Also on the agenda for this semester. Before we take a look at that vertical line test, let's just note what the domain and range is for each of these. The domain is all possible x values. So if I start on the left and I go right for the ellipse, the numbers start at -2 and they actually hit -2. And they continue on over, I'm hitting it, all x values occur all along the top. And I get over to +2 and it stops there. The range, we start at the bottom and go up. The first time we hit the graph is at -3. And the last time we hit the graph is at +3. So just like we did with interval notation, you can do the same thing with this domain and range. Pass your pencil along vertically and see where it starts. The graph starts hitting it at -2. And it's still hitting it and it stops hitting it at +2. When you do the y value, you gotta go a horizontal line and go upward. Because we want lower numbers on the left side of the interval. So we start at -3 and it stops hitting the graph at +3. If it has arrowheads on it, like the parabola does. And they're at any sort of angle that isn't like vertical or horizontal. You can assume they're going on forever at an angle. So like it may take a long time to hit a particular negative number or something like that, but it can. The domain here is all real numbers for the parabola. Because if I do the left to right test with my pen, I'm hitting the line the whole way. When I do the range, I go up, I start hitting it at -infinity, and I stop hitting it at 2. Now for the vertical line test. I'm drawing it because I'm scanning it, but normally you wouldn't draw on it. The idea is move your pen over it. And as long as your pen only hits the graph once, you're good to go. It's passing the vertical line test. The parabola passes the vertical line test. It only hits it once. The ellipse does not. It hits it twice in most places. So, like you wouldn't draw it on there, but I'm drawing it to show it. Only hits once. So the parabola is a function. At least this parabola is. Sideways parabolas are not. I do the same here. I'm fine outside of it, but as soon as I get on the graph, it hits the graph twice within. So ellipses are not functions. Generally, things are like a shortcut way to tell. If you have an equation. Y has to be the first power. X does not. Okay. So like. Y equals x squared, good. X equals y squared, bad. Both 1, -1 and 1, 1 solve x equals y squared. The same problem occurs with absolute value for y. You have an absolute value for y, the same thing happens. In fact, those same points work on it. Conveniently. So x equals absolute value of y is also bad. These points work on both of them, and I have one x value that has more than one y value. Linear inequalities are bad. Like y is greater than or equal to x, bad. When we see that, when we get to that in class, if there's whole regions, it's like if x is 1, then y equaling 1 works here, y equaling 2 works here, y equaling 3 works here. So like there's a lot of numbers that work for y for any x. Alright, so I've been talking about these functions. I'll give you a second. Finish writing. Alright. So just like Jimmy's grade. It's like the example with Jimmy's grade. Y depends on X, his grade depended on his score. When something like that happens, we say Y depends on X. Another way of saying this expression here is Y is a function of X. And we use the notation for functions f parentheses x. And this is read as f of x or f at x. Very rarely will you hear me. That f at x is so like alien to me that I would feels weird saying it here. I say f of x all the time. That's what this means. It's important to note, we used parentheses to show multiplication. When you have two letters like this is not multiplication. This is the name of the function. The f. And what's inside the parentheses tells us this is the independent variable. Or input. And what happens is we put in x, we get out y. So when you evaluate f at a value, we get y equals f at x. In fact, if we look at the thing I set up here, y is a function of x. Remember us talking about words in sentences and certain words mean certain things? Is was always the equal sign. Is went with equal sign. Y equals function of x. Y equals function of x. So if you see f of x, it's really the y value. It's the y value for a given x. For any x. It's only for a given x if there's a number in there.
Let's just right.
Yeah, but the important thing with it, they'll use f of x a lot of times over y because it tells us it's a function and it tells us if we put it in x, we put a number in, we don't gotta worry about getting more than one thing out. Like having fucking triplets. I guess that's not a very good really comparison. It works. It's an inappropriate comparison. This fucking vending machine is not a function. This vending machine fucking put in one set of money and it's yielding two things all the fucking time. So it's not a function. Doesn't mean functions aren't in math, they're great. This vending machine, we don't want it to be a function, we want it to be kicking out multiple. So let's just take a look at an example. You guys need to do this on the next page. We can have different functions. We use F, G, and H a lot. F and G are the most common names for functions. So like we can do F at -3. When you see something like this, oh wow, I just said F at -3. I did, I said ah. When you see something like this where it doesn't say the X, this means plug that in for X. And I recommend you use parentheses. And so here we have to evaluate it. -3 squared is 9, and then there's a negative on the outside. -6 times -3 is +18. +4. F of -3 equals 13. So a couple ways they'll say this is they might say evaluate F at -3. Or they might say find F at -3. They don't always ask you to put in numbers though. So we could have like G of R. And that means everywhere I see X, replace X with R. And if I get rid of the parentheses, it's just 3R plus 1. This seems silly, but it's leading to something here. We can do things like different values of R. I can have like R plus 2. Which means replace the X in G of X with R plus 2. That's 3R plus 6 plus 1. So G of R plus 2 equals 3R plus 7. We can even do shit like this. I can stick G of X in F. If I do that, it does this. I'm not going to calculate it out, I'm just going to show you what it is. Because there we have a whole section on it later on. This is called composition of functions. And we got a section on it later. Or this later. But I think if I show it to you here once, when you see it again later, it might like, oh yeah, we did talk about that for a second. Yeah,
Isn't it +4 at the end?
yeah. I looked up and saw the G, you're right, it is +4. Thank you. So they may ask you to write as a function, rewrite as a function. They might give you something that's extremely easy. And in this case, where are you at, you? 11 about something. You just replace the y with f of x. For something like 2x minus 3y equals 6. What you want to do to rewrite as a function is solve for y first. So we'll subtract 2x to the other side. Then we divide by -3. And we get y, which is our f of x, equals -2 over -3 is positive 2 over 3x. And 6 divided by -3 is -2. He's the fucking tired as fuck. Stay up all night? I should rejuvenate, pump you up. That's right. Oh, one of those types of midterms. Fuck all that. I took art history and there was a lot of fucking essays for that shit. I thought, why the fuck did I gotta write an essay for art? I gotta do that in English. Why art? Can't I just, no, talk about the romantic period and get the fuck out.
Tomorrow in surplus, the rest of the class right now is just gonna be us writing essay. Artistic,
Nice.
that's all it's gonna be.
That's what it's fun.
Writing essays, if you get good at it, you can make money. In fact, scholarship seasons are out. Scholarship season started up. I think, I'll put a link on class. In Canvas, if you've got good grades, or if you're coming in from high school and you had good grades in high school, but don't have anything in college yet, you can apply. And usually they have you write an essay about yourself. Like talk about your life and why getting a scholarship would help you. So first off, you have to have good essay writing skills. And you gotta do something which a lot of people are not comfortable with. Sell yourself. On scholarship essay, telling a good sob story of redemption, overcoming shit, like. My family, no one in my family went to college, they work in the fucking fields, I had to work with them. My mom and dad saved money so that I could come to school. And they want me, I'm the first child in my family going to school. And we can really use the money so that I can spend more time on my studies than working in the field. That kind of thing. All sorts of good style stories, overcoming problems. One last topic in this section before we take a break. Increasing functions and decreasing functions. Functions. Hill right there. So the idea here is. I have x1 and x2. And I look at f of x1. And f of x2. And both of these sentences are going to start off with the same thing. When x2 is greater than x1, which is what I have pictured. It's just how you label them. I could have chosen to label the two on the left, but that's not how I wanted to go. If f of x2 is greater than f of x1, it's increasing between them. And if f of x2 is less than f of x1, it's decreasing. Now what I do, this one is increasing everywhere. And this one is decreasing everywhere. But I could have a function that is increasing on part of its area, decreasing on another part, and it could start back up, be increasing again, decreasing again, do multiple things. So here it's increasing, decreasing, decreasing. Back when you take pre-calculus B, this is f of x equals cosine x. It makes a wave. That's in pre-calc B. And visually, it's kind of easy to see what it means. It means as you go from left to right, is the graph going up or down? Is it increasing goes up, decreasing goes down? The only reason for this is like if you haven't drawn the graph. If you have a table of numbers, you can look at the numbers and go, okay, like. I can see as X is increasing, Y is increasing. This is an increasing function. The idea is when x2 is greater than x1. X2, x1. F of x2, f of x1. Increasing as they go up together and decreasing as x goes up. That's a better way of saying it. This is much more concise. Increasing. As x goes up, y goes up. Or f of x. Decreasing. As x goes up, y goes down.
Like if it increases, it has to go up and to the right, and if it decreases, it go down.
Everything is to the right, left to right, always left to right. Just like we write in English, everything is left to right.
Okay.
And that's how x increases on a graph. On a graph, x increases to the right. So you're making a comparison of what happens with y or f of x as x goes. All right, let's take a 5-minute break. All right, part 2. 2.4 is on linear functions. Linear functions come in the form y equals f of x equals ax plus b. And a is not equal to 0. I guess a equals 0, like a not equal to 0 is most lines. If a equals 0, this is a horizontal line only. They're called linear. That's an R. It's got the word line in it. It tells you these make lines. And as long as if a doesn't equal 0, and we said this a little bit ago, the domain and range are all real numbers. From infinity to infinity, sometimes written as R. Yeah, in fact, we'll wait some teeth out next Friday. I'm not happy about that. I cracked with my tooth. It's giving. It was fine until I went to the fucking dentist. Like it was cracked for like 5 weeks, never gave me a fucking toothache. I went in, got a teeth cleaning, she's like, does it hurt? I'm like, no, and she's like, if it hurts, let us know. Like a week later, it started aching. But I have a wisdom teeth, yeah, I know, she totally fucking jinxed me. I have a good cleaning coming, or getting pulled next Friday.
Sounds fun.
I don't know that I've ever had them pulled, like, I don't have the lower ones, but I don't remember having them pulled ever.
Is that for real numbers or for range?
Both domain and range. The domain and range. So,
That's what that symbolizes.
no, that means real numbers.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Let's take a look. We've already talked about how to graph some of these. So I'm gonna gloss over part of it. One way to graph. Is using the intercept. Y-intercept is when x equals 0. And the x-intercept is when y equals 0. And they're labeled for when they cross the corresponding axis. We've done it with y, we haven't done with f of x, we'll do one with f of x. Let's do f of x equals 3/2 x plus 6. This is a lot easier to do the intercepts is if you relabel it as y. So we'll do 0 for x and we'll do 0 for y. If I do 0 for x, this equation actually is really fucking simple the way it's set up. Y equals 3/2 times 0 plus 6. So y equals 6. Not 5. I normally do every 5 and I was focusing on 6, so I marked the 6 for. When I do y equals 0, I gotta do some solving here. So I'll subtract 6 over. And I don't want to divide by 3/2, dividing by a fraction sucks ass. What can I do to besides divide by a fraction?
Multiply.
Multiply by what? What are you fucking throwing gang signs for, Luis? What are you?
Oh, no.
Multiplying by 2 works, that's a good start. That'll at least clear the fraction. And then we gotta divide by 3. Notice I multiplied by 2 here. Divided by 3 here. If we do them all at once. Multiply. By 2 over 3. Which was the reciprocal of what was there. Either way, we found our point. If you'd like to do them one at a time, like Luis went with. It very much works. And we draw the line. Always a good idea to find a third point, make sure your line works. I recommend finding a point that's like near it. In fact, if it's you find it, pick a value between them, let's say pick x equals -2. let's find what f of -2 is. Just talked about doing that. We plug in the value for x. F of -2 is 3. This gives me the ordered pair. -2, 3. Input, my x. Output, y. -2, 3 is right there and it's on the graph, so. Looks like I did a good job. And what's the domain and range here? All real numbers for either of them.
So all real numbers count as infinity?
Yes,
So it will be the same if we put
These
it
are the
into
same thing.
test or, oh,
if you
okay.
put that, this, or that.
Okay,
You don't have to put both. If you put one of them. When it's the right spot to do it.
okay.
Just do the libraries.
That's on next Monday. Only so much they cram into one section. We will do point slope form and slope intercept form. What you just said was slope intercept form. We're gonna do those on Monday. Those are what?
Fun.
Look at this kiss ass. This is a fucking kiss ass move right there. I approve. Everyone ready for more? So when they give us f of x equals 2. This says no matter what x I plug in. F of x, which is my y value, equals 2. This is a horizontal line. Domain is all real numbers. Range is y equals 2. Here, there is no f of x. Or y. So the graph doesn't depend on y. X equals 4. Any y works. There's no information given to us about it. Any y works gives us a vertical line. X equals 4 is the only requirement. Here, our domain is now the restricted one, x equals 4. And the range is infinite, all real numbers. Ready for more? Then what we have like something like 3x plus 4y equals 0. We go with our intercepts. If x equals 0, then I have 3 times 0 plus 4y equals 0. So 4y equals 0. And if I divide by 4, y equals 0. I get 0, 0 for that one. Unfortunately, that's what's gonna be what happens when you plug in y. We have 3x equals 0, and it shows that x equals 0 also here. So we've only got 1 point. So what can we do? I can pick another value. If I pick x to be the opposite number, it makes it kind of easy to find. Let's try x equals 4, you'll see what I mean. I'm picking x to equal 4 because it's the coefficient of the other number. Let's subtract 12 over. Divide by 4, and I get y equals -3. I have the order paired 4, -3. So sometimes when you only have 1 point, like in this case, we had the x and y intercept was a single point. Sometimes using the slope is handy. And there's a way of measuring this slope. The slope goes by the letter M. And it's a fraction. On top of the fraction is how much y changes, or a change in y. And the bottom is how much x changes, or a change in x. You might see this as delta y over delta x. Triangle is delta in the Greek alphabet. And you might be familiar with the phrase rise over run. They have never found anything better than that. I learned rise over run 30 fucking years ago. And it's just nice, short, one syllable words. They fucking just spell what it does. What you're looking for on M is how much y goes up over how much x goes to the right. And if I use it with just the points, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And this assumes x2 does not equal x1. Yeah.
Can't change it, but, oh wait, no. Yeah, sure.
Are you fucking with me, Jimmy?
No, just reading, it's on that.
So. My change in y, I went down 3. And I go right 4. Down is not up. So down gives me a negative value. My line up there has a slope of -3 over 4. I can also look at this as 3 over -4. I can go up 3 and left 4. Hit the line. So it just means going a different direction along the line. This is what Luis was asking about earlier. There's an equation form that we're gonna work with on Monday that has everything you could want. It gives you a starting point and it gives you the slope and you just run with it. Why can't I have x2 equal x1 here? Sarah,
That will equal 0.
what will equal 0?
The bottom will equal 0.
The bottom will equal 0. If x2 equals x1, then this equals 0. That's no bueno. No bueno. What's the wave go over? The U? The O?
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Just leave it like one. Yeah, that's fine. Remove that the eyebrow. Remove it. Yeah. One.
It doesn't have one?
It doesn't. Yeah, no. I
Why
don't know.
am why am I picturing it as having one?
Because you're
Maybe it is Portuguese. I don't know.
thinking the little spoon, that's an Enya.
Oh, like the Enya, yeah.
I bet I fucking saw it written somewhere like a brand name that had like. Que
The N is the
Bueno
only
fucking
one in
nacho
Spanish
cheese
that has
sauce. It's fucking. Que Bueno nacho cheese sauce is the best nacho cheese sauce in the world, and it's Spartan Final sauce. Like, I bet they have it. I took Spanish for 2 years. It's been a while. I know a little bit. Muy pequeño.
Poquito. Poquito.
What, see, I'm already making fun of you, so it's not good. It's not good sense.
It's not that.
Pequeño is small, isn't it?
Poquito is a little. Pequeño means small as in like size. Poquito is a little bit.
Okay. So my vocabulary is small, would make pequeño work.
Yeah.
The size of my vocabulary is little. The size of a jefe is not. Alright. So when we have. What situations give us where x2 equals x1? When does this happen?
If x2 is greater than x1.
If x2, no, if x2 equals x1. We have n equals some number over 0, which means it's undefined.
Wouldn't that be a vertical line?
Those are vertical lines. It's the same x value for different y's. The Jimmy was helpful. Luis just back there snickering at me. Luis wants an F.
Teachers. Or, yeah, that teaches that.
No, a little bit, like I said, a little bit. Biblioteca, if I can remember that. That's not, why are you laughing at that?
He's laughing at your accent, sure.
No,
I have a fucking white person accent, get over it.
no, it's bad, it's just the fact, biblioteca.
It's library.
Yeah, but you could, I think he's laughing at you could say that, but not.
No, I was not expecting that word you're gonna say. Biblioteca. The movie and see them.
I know a lot of cussing too. Don't make me start whipping out the cussing. Who was the one that was fucking cussing me out in class? Where is that guy?
What's that?
It was not Josue. Josue wouldn't do that. Josue was trolling.
What are you talking about me?
He fucking trolls me all the time. No, look that up, look it up. Just kidding, alright guys. Alright, find the slope. So, we're gonna do it two ways. The first way, I am gonna call this 1.1 and this 1.2. Remember, we're doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I recommend putting the fraction in the minus signs and that way you don't forget their minus signs, and if there's a negative sign in there, it's in addition to the minus sign. So my values for 0.1 go on the right. Y1 goes on top, x1 goes on bottom. And then y2 is -6, it goes in the upper left. And y1 is 2, it goes in the bottom. This is -10 over 4. Which simplifies to -5 over 2. Let's change it up. Let's call this 0.2 and this 0.1. I have 4. I didn't fucking change it. 4. I can fail. And then this is y1 is -6. And y2 is 4. Did I fuck this up?
Yes.
I fucked this, let me try this again. Y2 is 4. Y1 or X2 is -2. How did I fuck this up?
-4.
I mixed these up, didn't I?
Yeah, -4, so.
So Y1 is -6 up here. And that's negative, that's +2, okay, that's what I fucked up. I'm like, I'm getting a different answer, this is not working. I get 4 + 6 over -2 minus 2 is 10 over -4, the negative's on bottom here. But again, that simplifies to -5 over 2. Why don't you guys try 3, 8, and -5, 8?
I just have a question.
Yeah,
Okay, if the numerator is a 0, but the denominator is like a negative number, is it real?
if the numerator, say that again?
If the numerator is a 0, but I have in the denominator like a negative number, is that it is still like 1/8?
0 divided by a number does have a value.
So
What is it? 0. You
okay,
should get 0 here.
Oh, this way.
Doesn't matter which order
I
you do
spoiled
them
it.
in. You're either gonna have 0/8 or 0/8, depending on which way you did it. But if you leave that like that on the test, you're losing points. Because 0 divided by any number is 0. 0 divided by any number except 0. 0 divided by 0, that's some calculus shit. You do that in calculus. You guys ready for some more?
Yeah.
Alright, so if we don't have points and we have an equation, we can find the slope from an equation too. So let's say we have 2x minus 5y equals 10. We don't have points, but we still want to find the slope. To do that, solve for y. And the slope is the coefficient for x. I will subtract 2x from both sides. And then I will divide everything by -5. And the slope is 2/5. This has a special form that Luis is really just chomping at the bit to do. This is called y equals mx plus b. It's called the slope intercept form, and we will cover it in thorough detail on Monday. So how do we graph a line if we've got the, let's say we've got a slope and a point. M equals 4/3, and we've got the point -2, -3. So start at the point. -2, -3 is right there. And then do rise over run. This says rise 4 or go up 4. And run 3 means to go right 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And if you want to make drawing your line easier and points, it's a small slope, you can do it more than once. And it makes connecting the dots easier. Any questions? What do you guys want to do like that? M equals -1/4. And we'll start at the point, -3, 2. Alright, so -3, 2 is. Right here. And there's a couple options, -1/4. You can do is -1/4 or 1/-4. -1/4, the top one says go. Down 1 and right 4. Down 1 and right 4. This one says go up 1 and left 4. What?
So you end up with the same correctly.
Right, but if you wanna draw a different direction, that's how you can do it. Alright, let me show you the earthquake thing real quick. So earthquakes. So they have the seismographs at different locations. You could use a coordinate system, let's say they have a coordinate at 1, 4, -6, 0, and 5, -2. And this is recording a distance. 4 units away. The earthquake location, the epicenter. It's 4 units away there. It's 5 units away here. And 10 units away here. Those are the 5 marks. Alright. So I'm gonna, so 1, 4 is right here. And they know the earthquake is 4 units away. But they don't know in what direction. So we could draw a circle from here. And the earthquake is somewhere on that range. They know by how long it takes to measure it. For it to show up on this seismograph how far away it is, they do it based on time. Then there's another point at -6, 0, they know it's 5 units away. I don't know that I drew a good graph here. Should do something like that. 5, -2 is down here. And it's got a radius of 10. So it's probably something like this. And the location, the actual location of the earthquake. Is found by showing where the 3 circles overlap. So each sensor has, based on how long it took for the earthquake to get to them, they know about how far away it was. They draw circles overlapping so they get information from multiple sources. And they can pinpoint the center of an earthquake really fucking easy. Alright, that's it for this weekend. I will put up information about that Python coding camp if you're interested. And there's a little like a QR code to register. I'll do that tonight when I get home.
You'll put it on Canvas?
I'll put it on Canvas, yeah.
I think the